that was shit. I mean, wow. This show is awful. The characters are stereotypes of stereotypes. The story, I could write one of these stories in the amount of time it takes for me to take it. Partway through just one episode, you will want to strangle the person who created the laugh track. It just does so much wrong for horrible, horrible reasons. Like they tell joke after joke after joke after joke after joke after joke, hoping beyond reason that something is funny. And what's worse is some of these jokes could be funny. Honestly, the pilot is great in the sense that it tells you exactly what to expect from the writing in Jessie. And this pilot has to be the biggest steaming pile of shit I have ever seen. How bad? You know how the pilot has a job of introducing the premise of the show and all the characters? So most turn into a lot of rushed exposition. He doesn't have that problem. In fact, Jessie explains the character and the premise of the story so quickly that it needs like three more stories. One of these stories could have taken up like a whole season, or half a season, or at least a whole pilot episode if you were competent. But apparently, Jessie isn't competent. I'll show you what I mean. We start with Jessie coming to New York from Texas, and it soon becomes clear that she has a problem adjusting to her new environment. So, what you might think is that this episode will be about how Jessie struggles with her new settings as she attempts to adjust. Wrong! Because by sheer fucking coincidence, she gets thrown out next to a hotel just as the nanny decides to quit her job. She is instantly asked to be a new nanny by the youngest girl. So that story is pretty well done. She has a job out there, she's getting on her feet, she kinda has a place to live, she's a nanny now. Maybe I'm being too quick to judge. I mean, the 5-year-old can only offer her the job, so Jessie still doesn't have a job yet. I mean, it isn't like the mother who has to entrust this stranger with the well-being of her kids will just stare at this person she has never met and decide that she is totally qualified for her job. Oh no, wait, that's exactly what happens!
You're hired!
Now we have a story of Jessie trying to get control of and bond with these nanny killers.
The nanny killers.
As the show calls them. So they are probably going to cause all sorts of problems for Jessie, right? Well, they don't. It seems that they are pretty content to just be left alone in their rooms. And Jessie just sat on the couch, put her feet up, and only dealt with emergencies. She wouldn't have to do much. But no, instead she decides to make this her problem, by forcing the kids to sit down and eat dinner together, when they clearly do not want to do that. Acting of her forcing social activity on the kids, of course, this makes the kids resent her. So they try to fly away from her in a helicopter. You might think this ends with a cool scene of Jessie chasing the kids off the helicopter, and well, even a scene with a helicopter, but Disney is too cheap to spend money on having a helicopter in a scene. So you don't get to see anything. Just a cut with Jessie having crazy hair. I mean, I get why you gotta save your money for your shitty lightsaber. And Rule 34 material. My point is, if these kids are called nanny killers, if the nanny before Jessie ran out screaming, running from these kids, then why the fuck did Jessie need to be the one to start problems with these kids? Like, if the kids were always fighting and that is what was causing problems for Jessie, then it would make sense. Or if they were antagonizing her constantly, if they were constantly pranking her or making fun of her or something, then it would make sense. Although they do make fun of her a lot, but for really stupid reasons, like the dress you're wearing looks bad and you shouldn't be using cheap makeup. But from as far as we can tell, they are not always fighting. They enter fighting, but after that they are quite content to ignore each other. Besides this weird joke in which one of the kids is hitting on Jessie, they otherwise don't even bother Jessie. So why did the other nanny have a problem? Shouldn't we be getting some, like, Home Alone pranks and situations that Jessie does not nothing to deserve? But the kids do it to get rid of her? So anyway, after the kids almost kill her from dropping her out of a helicopter, Jessie bonds with the kids by making them do push-ups. So if you want kids to like you, use corporal punishment. Is that what they're trying to teach you here? It could be she bonds with the little black girl, and then later she bonds with the Indian kid by helping him with a video game, and almost getting eaten by a lizard. And she helps the blonde girl with her science project. And while doing that, she hears the kids' parents are not going to be able to show up and present her project. You know how I told you there were 3 episodes? Well, the 3rd episode involves Jessie going to the parents who she just met, who know next to nothing about her, and who just hired her, and telling them that they should go to their kids because they are clearly ignoring their kid, which is why their kids act out for attention. And what happens?
You're fired.
Here was a fucking miracle.
Chill, Jules. This shit happens.
Of course she gets fucking fired! Lady, these people do not know you. Hell, I have been watching this show for about 20 minutes now, and I still do not know you. You think that you can just walk in there and tell them how to raise their kids? Fortunately, the show doesn't stop there. Jessie decides that she is going to go and one girl present the project. And yes, there is a reason I am not calling these kids by their names. I will get to that. Anyway, they go to the project, and guess who shows up just in time for the presentation?
You came!
They got my dick message!
Because of course Disney has to have their happy ending, even if it makes no sense whatsoever. And that is how the first episode of Jessie ends. So, in conclusion, the main story of Jessie does not exist. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. A lot of shows, they just go episode by episode and tell a new story each episode. So that shouldn't be a problem. Well, while it is possible for a show to be entertaining by going from one episode to one episode, it is not a good idea to do that if you have horrible characters. And Jessie has horrible characters. The characters are so ignored that I refuse to call these characters, besides Jessie, by their actual name. Because if the writers don't give a shit, why the fuck should I? The first problem is that Jessie herself is an inconsistent character. At best, even. In one episode, a kid is pranked so that he is mauled by squirrels, shat on by birds, and left out in the rain for hours with no protective gear. And all Jessie does in response is tell the kid who's pranking him that he shouldn't do that. But otherwise does nothing for the kid who was pranked. She pretty much waves her finger, says, "Oh, you." She even high-fives the kid for pranking him. This would be fine considering the setup is a prankster's revenge. The kid who was being shat on was pranking the other kid, so it was a revenge tactic, so I guess. But the problem is, in the very next episode, for that same kid who was shat upon, she suddenly feels the need to cover up in protective gear as he goes up a tiny rock wall. Cover him in sunscreen and be overprotective otherwise. If she's going to not give a shit about the kid's safety, she needs to not give a shit about the kid's safety. She should either be shocked about the kid being out in the rain and take drastic measures to protect him, or she could not give two shits about the kid's safety. Either one is fine and potentially funny. But you can only pick one. At some points, Jessie is a badass Texas woman who is trained by a Marine dad to do all sorts of badass stuff. But at other times, she is terrified by a lizard or a bug or whatever other thing. Sometimes she is a gymnastic expert, doing all sorts of flips and dances and shit. But at other times, she is a total klutz. The only consistent thing with this character is that she has had many bad boyfriends. The problem is, it only points out as a fact that she has had many bad boyfriends. But it is never explained why she has bad boyfriends. Does she constantly go for bad boys? Is she attracted to losers? Does she not know how to act when she's around boys? No, she just has bad boyfriends. She just does. You have 4 kids, the butler and the doorman. All simple stereotypes that could be said in one word. Black, Indian, cool, blonde, lazy, New Yorker. Well, technically that's 2 words, but you get the idea! In more detail, there is a 5-year-old black kid who is black and 5. A 10-ish-year-old Indian kid, he is Indian, and that is the defining character about him.
What's your favorite type of ice cream? All of them. In India, we just had one kind. Melted.
An 11-year-old piece of shit. 11-year-old who is the cool one, using 90s terms.
And to think, could have had all this.
A 12-year-old girl who is blonde and
You could pack your bags and move to this planet.
a butler who is fat, old, and lazy.
I was gonna sign it too, but the pen is so far away.
And finally, a doorman who is a New Yorker and in love with Jessie.
Mortadell, mozzarella, pasta fazool, gabagool.
That is it. It could be possible that the characters change as the show goes on, but after 5 episodes and wanting to tear my own ears off, after the 5th, I decided the possible development isn't worth the wait. So you might be wondering if this show doesn't care about the story, the characters, and just by looking at the lightsaber scene, you can tell they don't care about the visuals. So then what does this show care about? The jokes. I am not kidding. There is so much emphasis put on these stupid jokes. The idea seems for the jokes to be quick instead of good, so you can hardly think of what was said, and instead laugh along with the laugh track before you can realize how shit the jokes are. What is stranger is how they choose some of these jokes, like,
Now, if you'll excuse me, just gonna go change my pants. And not because they're ripped.
why do they do this? They clearly do this because these out-of-place jokes should entertain an older audience. Jokes cannot be the sole entertainment of a 20-minute show. You need characters that you can at least be invested in. You need story that develops these characters. You cannot just solve the lack of entertainment by throwing jokes at the situation. What is worse is that I should be wrong about the jokes being the main focus. But everything points to... The characters are one-dimensional and based around ethnicity, so the jokes can be made about places of origin. New York, Texas, black culture, white culture, Indian culture. The stories exist for the sole purpose of creating scenarios for the jokes to play in, rather than to develop the characters. Like, the only reason the parents end up firing Jessie is because it's funny and unexpected, not because it makes sense, like I said earlier. The reason Jessie is overprotective and clumsy in one scene and athletic and calm in another is because it should be funnier. The jokes are the only thing that matters in this show. Therefore, in order to judge the show, one must judge the jokes. The jokes are shit.
It feels like a party.
This ain't a fucking game, bitch. I wanna watch a sitcom with my hand on my dick. I wanna see a titty, not fucking kid shit. Return all the hot chicks.